Taylor Swift, Spotify, and the internet blowing up with all kinds of internet-like emotions about it. Also, I voted today. Bam. Voting lightning strike. One of my goals is for Taylor Swift to not be able to escape my music. Let me explain. Not too long ago, I was out on a shopping trip with my family. We went to Kohl's and then like Applebee's. And I'm telling you, at least 2 or 3 of the places we went, there was a Taylor Swift song playing. And I thought to myself, Taylor, one day you are not going to be able to go anywhere to escape my music, because it's going to be everywhere too. And this whole thing about Taylor Swift just released her new album. And along with that move, that album didn't go to Spotify, but also Taylor Swift pulled all of her music from her prior catalog off of Spotify. Now I say Taylor Swift because one thing that we have to realize, and I think a lot of listeners don't, is that an artist is a brand name. And a lot of people work for that company. So when I say Taylor Swift, that means the artist herself, but then the many people that work for and with what is the Taylor Swift media machine. That sounds really sinister, but it's not. It just means that every artist is a business with employees. So all these people started reacting. Some said, well, Taylor Swift is greedy. Some people said, well, artists don't make that much off of Spotify. And of course, this age-old argument between artistry and business, when they should be working together, but often seem to be at odds, especially where the internet is concerned. I wanted to add this in. I just posted this video to YouTube and then I quickly pulled it back down because I realized something. Everything I say in this video, I still totally think is valid. The thing about it is, after I posted it, I went to go start looking up things about the new Taylor Swift album. Now, I've heard it because a friend of mine actually has the CD, and the new single, of course, is the song that they advertise very highly. But I realized something. My millennial brain, I was like, okay, well, how do I hear more than just the single? How do I decide whether I really like this album or not? And I realized I wanted to go to Spotify to do that, and I couldn't. And then my brain, it was like, how do I hear this music to decide if I like it or not? Interesting. That's just an interesting thing. It even happened to me just now, right after I made this video. So something to consider, because, you know, I guess the idea is you put out a single, people like the single, and it makes them want to buy the album. I guess now we just sort of perceive things differently. Again, I'm not making a value judgment on whether pulling your music from Spotify is good or bad. You'll hear that in the rest of this video. There's a lot to think about. But I just think that's really interesting. I just got interneted. Here's the thing we have to realize about Spotify. Now, my music is on Spotify, and I don't remember what the exact number is, but for every single stream of a song, the profit that comes from that to an artist or an artist's label, and we'll get to that in a moment, is a fraction of a cent. Now, I'm not saying that's bad. I think Spotify is really cool. I send people to Spotify to check out my music all the time, and that kind of accessibility is great for a whole lot of reasons. But just in case you didn't know, it's a fraction of a cent that comes back from every time a song is streamed. Now, I've been getting a lot of news in my email. I get updates about the music industry because I like to keep an eye on that sort of thing. And a lot of it's been doom and gloom out the wazoo. The music industry is dying. It's ailing. It's got a terminal disease and it's going to fail miserably. Basically, that's the stuff that I've been seeing in my news feed. And even a couple articles started to say, hopefully, when Taylor Swift releases this new album, it can inject some funds and some energy back into this industry. Now, I'm not going to say that that scares me. It doesn't. But I wonder why people are starting to say these things. And other people don't seem to think it's true at all. But a lot of the media that comes in is a little panicked, to say the least. And there's a lot of reasons for that. My friends and I, we were talking about this issue, and one of the things that we came to was that the listeners don't really understand the industry as much as I think that they do. And the industry doesn't always understand the listeners as well as they think they do. So first, let's start with the listeners. Listeners, this is kind of what you need to know about the traditional model of the music industry, okay? You've got an artist creates music. gets the attention of a record label. Now, a record label is essentially a big business, a business with money. I say big, but record labels can be a few people all the way up to a big business. But since we're talking about the majors here, that business invests money into an artist in order to get them into the studio, get their album recorded, get it mixed and mastered, get it distributed physically and digitally, get all the promotional materials made and put them on tour. Now, on the smaller levels, this doesn't always work out that well for the artists per se. In fact, even on the regional levels, I've heard stories of these artists who are doing all the things that you think define a successful artist. Their stuff is on the radio and they're touring. Now, this has to do more with like certain rock bands and stuff, and I'm not applying this to me. I don't have this problem. But basically, these guys they went into debt to their record label just to make their album. And now they're going on tour to hopefully make enough money to pay that debt back, living on $10 per person a day, and not even able to make the money from their merchandise sales because the venues they're going to want a cut of the profit. But I'm putting that out there that has happened to some people, and I think listeners should probably have a little bit of an understanding about that. However, basically, the other thing you need to know about record labels is that, maybe not always, but most of the time, when an artist goes onto a record label, especially usually with one of the majors, that label owns the copyrights to that artist's recordings, right? So they own those songs. Whatever their contract lays out for however many albums they have to make for that record label, that label owns those. So when it comes to something like Spotify, where the sales, the income per stream is what it is, you've got to think also that the record label is taking a piece of that profit too before it ever gets back to the artist. Now, another thing you have to realize is that these touring shows are really, really big enterprises, okay? You've got the artists or the solo artists themselves, then you've got the musicians, background singers, dancers, stage technicians, light techs, sound techs, stage setup. I know some of these bigger tours have 9 to 18-wheeler trucks, plus like 9 tour buses for all the people. So you've got drivers, you've got gas costs, you've got food costs, you've got caterers, you have booking agents, you've got managers, you've got security detail, you've got 100 of the things I'm not thinking of. There's all these people working just for that artist as a brand name. And those people have to get paid too because that's their job. I'm not really sure whether this pulling the music off of Spotify is going to be a good business move or not. Thankfully, they're doing it and we're going to find out. Now, on the other hand, listeners I had a friend of mine say, well, when somebody tells me that an artist is a big deal, the first place I go is Spotify. I want to go and I want to check out their music, and then I decide if I like them or not, and then if I like them, I'll buy t-shirts, I'll buy a CD, I'll buy merchandise, I'll go to concerts. And that's kind of what the new model is proposed to have been by the business people. The thing is, you've got issues like, the Super Bowl saying that artists should pay to play at the Super Bowl because the publicity of the Super Bowl is worth its weight in gold. And there's just been kind of too many times that people have been telling artists that the publicity is all worth it on its own. And you know what? Sometimes that's true. But listeners, I think it's worth taking a step back and realizing to yourself, okay, there is still a fundamental problem when people get upset and start throwing around words like greedy when they can't get someone else's hard work for free anymore. That's all I'm saying. Do I have a problem with Spotify? No. No, I send people to it. I even put my own music on YouTube. See, the new model, according to kind of the business people, is that, well, artists won't make money off of recordings. They make money off of touring and merchandise sales. According to the business people, that's the new model. Let me add to that, though, by saying I don't have a problem with record labels. They can be a great thing, full of great people, with tons of resources to help artists succeed. This isn't about a dichotomy between artists and labels. It's just about there being different ways to do it now because, well, the internet happened. But According to artists, the model is actually somewhat different, the new emerging model. You know, you look at people who've begun to break the mold. People like Lindsey Stirling. Lindsey Stirling is still an independent artist, owns her own masters, and can do whatever she wants. That's awesome. You even can look at artists like Macklemore and Ryan Lewis. They technically still own all their own masters. Now, they distributed The Heist through the Alternative Distribution Alliance, which is owned by Warner Brothers. But Macklemore and Ryan Lewis paid those guys to distribute their album as if it were on a record label, but they still own their own masters. So we're starting to see a little bit of a change in the climate, which I think is what's causing a lot of this uproar and panic. By the way, Lindsey, if you ever want to collaborate, just call me. Message me. Tweet me. So, to make a long story short, I understand the business perspective of this. I also understand the listener perspective of this, because it's like, whoa. You know, listeners are like, well, don't you have enough money? And it seems like from some of the things they've said about these actions that they're sort of trying to change the climate regarding music and all these music issues, not just for themselves, but for other musicians. But I also think that we should think about the fact that there's a lot of people's careers riding on decisions like this, and so whether it works out or not, time will tell. Anyway, that's my take on it. I think it's super interesting, and we're going to watch and see what happens. By the way, as always, feel free to go check out and buy my music. My new single, Look Forward, has only been out for a couple months now, and my EP, The Spark, is on iTunes as well, and just about every other digital outlet there is. So, thanks guys.